So, hey guys, welcome to Fire Warrior YouTube Church, guys. So, today we're going to be talking about the 3 stages of life with God. Now, this is generalized a lot, okay? There's different, and there's actually in some people's life a lot more complex stuff. This is just general, kind of everything. So, the first stage of life, which when you're really young, we'll call them young disciples of God, okay? When you are like up to maybe your preteens, like, 10, 11-ish is when it really ends. So, this point, you are young disciple of God, you hear from somebody else maybe. And, like, you hear about God. You're like, you know what? I'm going to bring this knowledge and I'm going to tell my parents. The parents that are going to be the next stage and teens, they're like, they start losing their faith. So these kids come over here and they bring it to them. So they kind of are like the young disciples. They really do. They help out the people that are in the next stage. I'll come back to this young disciples in a minute after I describe the next stage. Next stage are the, for lack of better words, they're like the, lose the faith people, not lose the faith, but they lose the faith in God, okay? When they start getting a mind for themselves, as even kids, when you get your own mind, you think, my way is better than God's way, okay? The young disciples of God will try to help prevent that, but they're not going to listen. You as a, sinner or real big sinner, knowing better, you still sin because you believe your ways are better than the most powerful guy's way. Let me fix the camera here. So then it's not just down here, you can see my face. So, pretty much you're believing that your way is better than God's way. And God sometimes takes the young disciples, which we can find a lot of. If you watch a lot of movies, there's a lot of movies about it. I've had experience like that when I was a kid too. Of when I had cancer as 3, but he will send those young disciples. They will get sick. They'll get something happen to them, right? It tests their parents' faith, okay? And test is, kind of saying test is not really like testing, but kind of. It's the easiest way to describe it. So, he's over here. They're getting sick. Now, parents, almost immediately after a day or so of this being sick in the hospital, they lose their faith with God. Okay. You can't just lose your faith out of the blue. One day, you cannot lose your faith just one day, and that's it. There's got to be something building up to you losing your faith. Not wanting to really do it anymore because that takes time out of your day and, you're more important than God, you think, in your head. Now, a lot of people think that. You may not think it now, but a lot of people think they're more powerful than God. Although, maybe that's not how you're really thinking. That's truthfully what setting you really are doing, is thinking you're better than God. Now, they get sick. They're like, hey, you need to pray or something like that, and, or later on, maybe they'll go to heaven and come back, okay? So, when you go to heaven and come back, they tell them, we tell them stories, right? Okay? As a young disciple, you tell them a story. You know, like, hey, I went up to heaven and I came back. Okay, now all things that movies don't describe necessarily about that. Because the parents or sinners or whatever, the middle-aged people as they lose their faith. Okay? They also lose their faith against their kids' better judgment. Okay? Okay. If you really did, then what did it look like? You know, oh yeah, like, they don't believe you. Okay? A lot of people are like, yeah, oh yeah, okay. Like in the movies, I'm saying, they'll be like, yeah, okay, I believe you. Parents do not believe their kids off the bat about that. No, they do not. They want to be like, okay, if this is true, then what's this? Because they still don't believe that, okay? But movies, you know, try to speed it up and make it look better, like, you know, they immediately do this. But no, parents will ask a lot of questions like, then you know, when you were out of your body, you know, like, what was I doing while you were in surgery or something like that? And then sometimes when you answer that question correctly, they're like, oh, wow, okay. Then they believe you. But what I'm trying to say is movies will think, you know, they'll just believe you off the get-go. But we're all like, you know, oh, well, that ain't going to happen. So I want to hear your story, but I guarantee it's false. But, you know, and then when they figure it out to be correct, we're like, oh, wow. Back up a little bit. But when we have our own mindset for our own self, we tend to make worse judgments. We tend to, just like those kids, they're also second-guessing God's statements. Like, go tell that guy about God. No, because, you know, he may do this. We're second-guessing what he just told us to do. You know, that's the second stage of life. You know, and I have 3, I said. Okay? So, as that young disciple helps out with the, you know, other people, the sinners, or I had a better word, but I totally forgot about it. What a better word was for the second segment. But, you know, but the third one happens mostly when you become elderly, okay? You can find a lot in your elderly people, right? These are almost like there's a gap in between. Number 2 is just a weird gap, okay? And it's the longest of them all, where you don't trust in judgments. You think, you know, you have the mind for your own. Your elderly and your young disciples, okay? These 2, right? Or your elders is the last one. I'll call them elders because elders and young disciples, they both are in the Bible as a word. Okay, so the elders are like you. In here, I'll start with this. Okay, when they die, okay, a lot of them will say stories. I see angels, okay, in the sky. Okay. Now, young disciples also can see things like that in the room. When they're in, you know, they're close to going to see God, they can see those angels. Now, I'm not saying people in the middle do. What I'm saying is that there's 2 sections of the spectrum. And they need to close in to the gaps in between. But how many people are in that widened gap? That's almost 60 years of people. And when you only live for 80, that's about 20 years of actual, you know, 20-year years versus 60 years. Which one's going to be easier? Okay? So, in like your second term, the devil years, we're saying that's kind of like a really hard time for everybody to get to. But what I'm trying to say is that third point of your life is when you find God. Okay? Most of the time we know when they go, they're going to heaven. Now, number two's, the second stage of life, oh heck if we know if they're going. Okay, because we get angry at God no matter what. Oh yeah, it's all his fault, whatever. We blame him immediately. Young disciples, they don't like, hey God, I hate you, whatever. They use God's name in vain. 10 Commandments. Neither do the elders. They hit a point where they're like, and it does not just come out of the blue, okay? It comes from many years of raising it up, and then, they move into that in life. They're like, well, when they finally figure out, like, hey, there's a point in your life where you start figuring out, when I go God's way, that's the right way. But when I go my way, I cannot run fast enough away from God. Because he's going to catch back up with me. I can't run away from the devil either. Going this way, I can't run towards. You run towards him. But God's going to try to catch you. Why are you running away from your own Father? Run towards him and away from the devil. But we want to run towards the devil and away from God. In the second stage of life. So, once they figure that out, they start running in the correct direction. But we want to make it so that everybody can go to heaven. And everybody knows if you died today, you would have no regrets, no issues, because God's going to take you to heaven. Not being like, I may not, because I want to live the life of me. You only have one day to live. If you had one day to live today, would you change for God, or would you go do something you want to do? Would you go to a church? Or would you just go to like an amusement park? Amusement park is what a lot of the twos said. Only 6% in a poll from 2016 said that they would actually go to church or something like that, or some kind of religious or some kind of service such as that. And of course there was 20% saying they'd hang out with family and stuff like that. But the rest of them said they'd go to something fun. And we got 26% going sort of this direction, because family, God is family. Sometimes we don't treat him like that, but he's family. We treat him like that long lost person we never want to see again. Which I have a video about that, preaching. But, we need to bring ourselves from this direction, running towards the devil, back to this direction, running towards God. And the elders, they find that out. But we need to make it so that everybody, we can bridge that 60-year gap where it's that everybody believes in God. They don't, every time something's wrong, they don't blame God. You can't blame God about something going wrong if you don't even let him control your life. It's not his fault if he doesn't control it. Okay? So you're going to blame God. Although he had no control because you didn't let him have control of your life. You said, no, God is less than me, I'm more powerful. My mind's more powerful. So I want you to, in the next weeks, pray to God and keep a thought. If I died today, would I be going to heaven? And if not, I would like you to, find somebody to disciple disciple you, and then, keep adding that on, and, positivity throughout, and disciple others. And pray to God what He wants you to do, what He wants you to do with His life, not what you want to do with your life. So, I want you to do that this next couple weeks, and, come back to this video and see where you end up at the end of this journey. So guys, also comment down below if you come back to this video and tell me how it's changed you and what you are going to do this week to make for the better, not the negative of yourself, but for God.